The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Will Pangman from Topeki.
Hi.
Christoph Atlas from Anonymous Bitcoin Book.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Our top story tonight, Issue 1. Kraken selected to aid Mt Gox liquidation and investigation. Kraken's Japanese expansion continues, this time volunteering their expertise to both investigate and distribute found bitcoins in the aftermath of Mt Gox. The Kraken exchange, who previously responded because planning to the transaction malleability bug, continues to impress. Full disclosure, I went to college with the CEO of Kraken. I say it like I'm serious press, but at this point it sounds more like a brag. Will Pangman, your thoughts. Is the return of Gox a good thing for Bitcoin?
I don't know if we're going to see the return of Gox, but we're going to at least see, a responsible business in the space, at least as they've demonstrated to this point. Kraken and Jesse Powell, your classmate. He could be. I mean, he is incredibly badass for doing this, to be honest. And this is a huge risk that they're taking. I think he's taking it because he, from what I can tell, is someone who truly cares about the space. He cares about the users, and he cares about the people who are Mt. Gox creditors. And they're not going to get back everything they lost, more than likely, but they'll get back whatever's left and apportioned to them by a responsible player in the space. So really, kudos to Jesse and the team at Kraken, and I think this might be a soft landing or somewhat kind of a happy ending to a very tragic story that was the Mt. Gox saga.
And this was a major concern in the Bitcoin space. Who's going to investigate this? Are we going to find out what really happened? Now, for the first time, I feel like we might actually find out what happened because they've got a competent team on the ground. Christoph Atlas.
Yeah, I thought there were a couple points in the story that were interesting. Number one, are we going to see Gox coming back? No. The Kraken CEO says the reputation is irreparably damaged. MtGox is now associated with complete fail, and he said that he had absolutely no interest in Rand, which I think we sort of observed this back several months ago when we talked about that. I'm also curious if we'll ever get any insight into what happened with the Gox coins. Apparently they're bringing on a team of researchers who focus on Bitcoin security full-time. They're a Japanese-based business, and they've been doing some research in this area. I wouldn't be surprised if we did get some insight into this because of the sheer amount of money that's involved. It's very difficult to hide that amount of money on the blockchain. Simply splitting it into ever smaller amounts of funds is not a very effective means of doing it. If you want to try and obscure the trail by putting the coin through a mixer or something along these lines, there simply isn't enough volume transactions. If you're trying to mix $1 million in Bitcoin and everybody else is trying to do $100,000 total, then you're 90%, something like 90% of that volume. So even if you do successfully get your coins through this mixing process, everything that's coming out of that mixing process, there's a 9 in 10 chance that it belongs to you. So it's really hard to make these things disappear. In many ways, it's kind of surprising that we haven't already figured out what happened with a lot of these coins. And I think that there's definitely a possibility that we'll see something happen there.
9 in 10, those are great odds. And it's too bad they won't be restarting Mt. Gox because they were going to miss out on that $1 that Brock Pierce offered them for the company. Moving on, Issue 2. Reddit says Western Union demanded takedown of this Bitcoin ad mocking the company from Facebook, igniting a firestorm on our Bitcoin where multiple other parodies were quickly created and the Streisand effect was in full force. Christoph Atlas, Your thoughts on Western Union? Was taking down this image really a good idea?
No, had the OPEC. It's not surprising. You see this kind of lack of awareness in these old style companies. I mean, Western Union probably would like to think of themselves as a sort of a hip, technology savvy company, but in a lot of ways they feel very old.
Looks like we're having some connection
Especially,
problems with Christoph. Can you hear us? We're talking about. It's like he's slowed down quite a lot.
in the Bitcoin.
And remember that at Western Union, it probably wasn't a very large person making the decision. This is small, probably at a smaller level. They said, well, you've got our logo. It must be copyright infringement. We're going to go ahead and flag that. They didn't think that the Redditor who got flagged would take a picture of getting flagged, put that on the internet, and that would start the flames. Will Pangman, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was really eager to hear Christoph, bring home the point, but Western Union being an old company, like 230 years old, they really have done very little to modernize their business over the last several decades, and they look that part. They really do. A company that old, being around so long, is a huge achievement. I mean, massive achievement. But in order to continue to grow with the pace of technology, they need to make dramatic changes. The proper way to handle this, if you wanted to couch this as a single instance, or whatever, would be to make fun of yourselves only in the public forums where you're being made fun of, and not let it really seep out into the greater channels of the internet, like Reddit, for example. To just make fun of yourself and say, oh, haha, you're right, we kind of like this Bitcoin thing too, very interesting. And that would get a different kind of discussion going on Reddit, perhaps, and more positively tinged for Western Union. So it was a total PR debacle on their part, the knee-jerk reaction of pulling this stuff. Censorship is usually the wrong answer, no matter what your controversy is, and it's going to backfire on you, basically, especially in the days of the internet. So yeah, they're an old company. They're being outmoded very quickly. The ad is kind of easy pickings. It's such low-hanging fruit for these memes and these mockings that were coming out. So again, their creativity is really poor, and their PR in response to this. Now, who knows how many thousands of people saw this? Plenty of thousands shared it around on Reddit and Facebook, and it probably got out to a good chunk of the netizens out there. So yeah, it's certainly something that needed to be handled better, and we won't. Maybe Western Union will jump on the Bitcoin train or the crypto train, and they'll continue to survive for another 100 to 230 years. But I think what we're seeing is that probably won't happen.
And that's exactly what they need to do. They need to adopt Bitcoin. They probably need to buy a company like RoboCoin, get some Bitcoin ATMs that are two ways, install them in all of their existing brick and mortar locations, and make an incredible transition. It's very unlikely they're going to be able to make that incredible transition, even though they have the brick and mortar stores, and you think that would be an advantage. It reminds me of when Blockbuster was starting to sink downwards, and people were like, what if Blockbuster kind of merged with the Netflix, where instead of putting your movies in the mail, you could take your movies back to the store and trade them in again, or you could put them in the mail. But that idea never really came together. The idea of taking your phone to a Blockbuster to download a movie never really made any sense, and I think Western Union is going to find much the same problem. Christoph, you seem to be back with us. Any more thoughts on Western Union if the connection will allow? Still muted.
I think something was interesting about the story. Oh, can you hear me okay?
I think we have a bit of a delay, so go ahead.
Okay. So the one sort of meta thing about this story that was interesting was the introspection on Reddit. People sort of saying it got really a lot of attention, Bitcoin subreddit, and then people saying, no, this is getting too much attention, this is too much of a circle jerk, where this is ridiculous. I'm ashamed of the Bitcoin community. Like, as someone pointed out on Reddit, I thought this was quite apropos. You know, if you have serious stuff that you're covering every single day, it's fine every once in a while to, you know, focus on some silly stuff. And the Western Union thing certainly was silly.
It's a silly company anyway to think that they could compete with Bitcoin. It's a very just hilarious idea that they still exist. Telegrams, telegraphs, wiring money. I have that record I showed on the internet the other day, How to Code, and it's a record, so it doesn't mean computer program, it means Morse code. So just a real idea of how old this company is, what we're dealing with here. Exit question, and this very much lines up with what I was saying. How much longer will Western Union be in business? Will Pengman?
Well, they need to slash their fees, and they need to adopt the future payment technologies, which lots of banks and financial institutions have been reluctant, slow to do. Western Union would be a giant if they did. One of the biggest. It's one of them and MoneyGram, I think, are really the only practical ways to send money around the world in terms of U.S. dollars, unless you're higher net worth individual. So, yeah, they pivot and shift, and they could keep all the same branding and strategies, everything, but they're probably not going to. So 15, 25 years.
Wow. Christoph Atlas.
Yeah, more years at the very least. They primarily cater to those who are technologically challenged, and until Bitcoin becomes really easy for people to use, and until Bitcoin can, you can really rely on Bitcoin to pay things that need to be paid in an emergency fashion, Western Union is going to continue to have utility to those individuals.
There is certainly a problem of developing world access to both smartphones, Bitcoin, and a place where you can trade your Bitcoin for your local currency. But overcoming these barriers could happen quickly. Internet adoption happened quickly, Wi-Fi adoption happened quickly, smartphone adoption is happening quickly. I think they could be in serious trouble within 5 years. Moving on, did you know you can ask questions to the Bitcoin group at any time during the live broadcast? Simply click on the overlaid questions icon on the YouTube video, log into Google+, and you'll be all set. Your questions on the Bitcoin group. What could be simpler than that? Issue 3, Bitcoin Black Friday. Both charities and businesses are participating in what I'm sure is already a major success, though I haven't had the chance to buy anything yet. Will Pengman, what are you looking forward to buying? Any deals catch your eye? What about the charities? I see the American Red Cross is now accepting Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, I love seeing the big name charities come on board, and they would really impress me if they would provide the transparency that I think a lot of folks would like to see them leverage using the Bitcoin blockchain technology. So maybe we'll see that in several more months from some of these bigger charities. That would be really cool, because I know people have questions about the Red Cross. I didn't do any charitable giving over the holiday season yet. But I did some shopping late last night and earlier today using Bitcoin. Some gifts, and I won't say publicly for who or what I got, because that's for almost a month from now, I guess. So.
Do not open until Christmas. Christoph Atlas, did you buy anything today?
No, I'm smogging. I don't know if you're familiar with this term, but it's a reference to the dragon from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. It's a dragon that sits on a giant pile of gold, and he never ever moves the gold, and he just sleeps on top of them. And that's what I do with my Bitcoin. So I'm glad that there's more attention to Bitcoin through these kind of deals and the press and whatnot is over my head.
That's good to hear that somebody's holding on to their gold like a dragon. Now, I haven't bought anything yet. There looked like there was a lot of good deals. Check out the Bitcoin Black Friday site at, I think, bitcoinblackfriday.com. They also had the charity deals. I wouldn't hold your breath for that transparency on the American Red Cross, Will. I think a lot of the old world charities are going to use Bitcoin as a way just to augment their funds, try to collect another category of funds. But it does open the door for what you're describing. a truly Bitcoin charity that keeps its expenses on the blockchain, pays its vendors in Bitcoin, and donates and spreads Bitcoin around. I'm not sure we've seen that yet. BitGive Foundation is very close to that, but again, being the first one and being the first one to be, cryptographically proven or all on the blockchain, that's going to be incredibly difficult. So I would hold off for that. You don't want to be the first. You could have some problems. We have additional comments on this, Christoph?
Yeah, I was going to say, on the subject of charities, it is quite interesting. So I agree that these old world charities are going to take a very long time to integrate blockchain technology, but in the Bitcoin world, we are seeing significant pressure on Bitcoin-based charities to up their game. So one of the big Bitcoin news items recently was Sean's outpost. There was some criticism about the sort of openness that they were demonstrating with their funds, where they were going, how much funds they had received, how much they had spent, and the attention forced them to make some quick changes to how they're receiving their funds, making sure they're secure, and opening up their books to the donating public. So I think that we could see a lot more of that spread into other charities in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and it's going to seep out from there into the rest of the charitable world.
Will, do you have a comment?
Yeah, just real quick to pick up on what Christoph's saying, and I thought about this, of course, with the news about Jason King and Sean's outpost, and also the startup that I'm working on with Topiki. So it's a personal finance app, but we have more aspirations. There's a very bloated features pipeline that we're hoping to get all through, and somewhere along the line in Topiki's early lifetime, we're going to talk to lots of charities, of Bitcoin charities and bigger ones, and they'll be able to manage all of their public keys in Topiki, and they'll be able to share publicly portions or all of that however they see fit in really a clean environment that anyone can understand, where the inflows and outflows are coming and going. So that's a really exciting feature. We're not sure what we're going to call the feature yet, but it'll be a big feature with the Topiki software once we're out of beta. So I just wanted to plug that. Keep an eye out. We've got we'll be starting our private beta here within about 10 days, and then public a couple weeks after that. So we're really excited to be able to provide something that can help these Bitcoin charities really lead the way and show the power of sharing this information with your donors, your constituents, and future donors.
And it is really all about the information. As I've said before, during the FR33 AIDS campaign to the Philippines, they shared all of the information about what they were buying and what they were selling. They put all of the pictures out right away, and they didn't really waste any time about that. And there was something else I was going to say that I totally forgot. Oh, I was going to say, Christoph's right. I saw an article on bitcoinnotbombs.com about this is the year of multi-sig, is what the article said. So a lot of charities are starting to collect their funds in multi-signature wallets where not one person would hold the key, and also not one person could lose the key or get hacked for the key. So hopefully this will lead to an increase in security, a decrease in lost funds, and a general good sense of well-being that you can trust these charities because they have upped their game. If you notice on the front letters of your Bitcoin address, it says 1. If it says 3, that's a multi-sig wallet. So keep an eye out for the front digit of your Bitcoin address and try out multi-sig yourself. Moving on, issue 4. Did the NSA outline Bitcoin in 1996? An early research paper by the NSA describes a system of cryptographic cash based upon the SHA-1 cipher, the predecessor to the SHA of 256 used by Bitcoin. This early paper was published in the MIT newsletter and the Harvard Law Review. However, many believe that the most important question that this paper raises is, did Satoshi Nakamoto work for the NSA? Christoph Atlas.
I think this question is 100% silly. So just some empirical evidence, right? He said, no, this that they put out there is it's not peer-to-peer in nature. You don't have decentralized minting of coins. It's not. As for whether the NSA invented Bitcoin, which I suppose is a separate issue, to me it's like it's unlikely a Vivo invent BitTorrent. Well, I don't know. Maybe and probably programmer station, and even if they did, it's too freaking late. I mean, they don't know how to stop BitTorrent, and it's destroying their fund to the NSA and Bitcoin.
Will Pangman.
Yeah, this is a story that seems to be dug up every couple months or so. Well, really, like every couple times a year, 2 or 3 times a year, I see this. And what is happening is Bitcoin adoption is growing, so a lot more new minds are coming into the space, and they're doing their due diligence research like we all did in the early days to convince ourselves that this was really, that it wasn't too good to be true or whatever doubts you had. And in that process, you come across, if you're doing deep research, you're coming across this paper. This is a popular paper. It's out there on MIT's website. It's on the NSA's website. It's throughout forums, and it's a really interesting paper. But the key takeaways, Christoph hit at them. There's no peer-to-peer mention in this. There's no distribution of the currency via decentralized mining or decentralized issuance of any kind, and there's no talk of blockchains or discussion of really how you would come to the precursors of architecting a blockchain. So what we're seeing with this paper, and I've said this on this show before, I believe, is the two camps that are always kind of intermingling with each other. There maybe even be some kind of a revolving door informally between, let's say, NSA folks, private contractors, or government employed, and cypherpunks, and the folks who are interested in this stuff, peer-to-peer foundation folks, and so on. And they piggyback on each other's innovations as they build on these same ideas. And of course, the electronic cash, hash cash, digital currency has been one of the holy grails of digital inventions that we want to see in the future. And so this is like just another paper getting closer at that, kind of chipping away at it, where NSA folks are looking at what the cypherpunks are doing, chipping away some more at it, adding to it. There wasn't a GitHub back then, but they're essentially doing pull requests with each other, kind of. And what we see out of it is things that are used for, let's say, innocent purposes, and things that are used for not so innocent purposes, and both of those things are happening by both camps. So this is just experimentation, and these two communities are sort of intermingling from time to time and working together sort of informally. And what we see out of it is kind of like Adam Back's Cash with David Kalm and all these other guys, Hal Finney, coming together with Satoshi to bring us Bitcoin and the blockchain.
I remember that everyone was talking about it. Science fiction authors, movies, everyone knew there was some kind of digital cash that could be developed. But it took the cyberpunks and it took Satoshi bringing all of these tools and all of these various ideas together into one Bitcoin that really seems so far on its face to have actually brought us there, that we were actually on the threshold of real digital cash not controlled by a government, which is still, even to say that today after a year and a half of focusing on this very, very seriously, it's incredible without a government. And I didn't say anonymous, but I would say pseudo-anonymous, but that confuses people. Moving on, issue 5. China's crackdown in Hong Kong may fuel a long-term democracy movement. Protests continue in Hong Kong for the second straight month, as covered live here on the World Crypto Network by the brave journalist James Bang. Recently, police removed protesters from their streets, but the protesters came back. Just this morning, live on the World Crypto Network, the protesters adopted a strategy of constant movement, which totally baffled the Hong Kong police. Will Pangman, could the Umbrella Revolution spark a full-scale democracy movement in China? Is this a further extension of the Arab Spring? Sorry.
Yeah, I think it is an extension of the Arab Spring. This sentiment was hypothesized, this global sentiment that's sort of spreading like bees migrating or whatever you want to say. This was hypothesized by roundtable groups and policymakers the world over, presidential advisors and so on, the Kissingers, the Brzezinskis of the world, and others. They hypothesized that there'd be this fomenting unrest because of the soft tyranny, for lack of a better term, that's probably not their words, but that was enveloping the world, and very much was the strategy that these folks come up with. So they knew that it would come, and here it is. We have the Arab Spring, we have Occupy stuff happening, it's still going on, and we've got what's going on in Hong Kong. So, I mean, will it spawn a democratic revolution of sorts? I think all of these kinds of movements, they tend to get co-opted in some way or another at some point. And what happens is the message is whitewashed, or the message is shifted and changed to be neutered in a way so that it can't accomplish the actual changes that, let's say, the movement started with. So I really think, I'm more impressed by this umbrella revolution so far than any of the other ones previously, because it doesn't seem to have been co-opted just yet, and these strategies and tools that they're using, like fire chat and mesh networking and just some of the other strategies that they're using, social media, to stay together, is kind of putting up a force field of sorts from co-option. And I don't think it's going to be impervious to co-option and being altered or neutered, like I said before. That probably will still happen, but we're getting, we as in like groups of people who voluntarily organize themselves to kind of work towards a change, are getting better at doing this. I think human beings are getting better at grouping up while still doing so for your own personal self-interest and those kinds of things. So, and I think digital currencies, Bitcoin, the reason we're here to talk about this story, it is kind of the lesson or an example that people are using to teach themselves better how to do this, operational security around your movement, around your money, around your personal life, so that you can survive and achieve the vision and not go off message and not get distracted and co-opted. These people don't seem to be disillusioned yet. So when there's disillusionment, there's been co-option. That's what I use.
Well, and certainly the movement has no leaders, so there's no one to co-opt, so hopefully that will continue. And as we've seen this morning, at least from a media perspective, the media situation is getting better. We had multiple people out there doing live tweets, doing live photos, doing vines. We had James Bang from Hong Kong out there filming with us, and they also had a live broadcaster from Japan who was there, as well as the rest of the traditional media. So there's an incredible media force there. There's human rights monitors, and there's volunteers watching the situation. So it is improving, but it's also extending, and no one knows where it's going to end or what the ending is going to look like. Christoph Atlas, your thoughts?
The Chinese government is extremely savvy at oppressing democratic revolution, and you can be sure that they're keeping very, very close tabs on this and putting a lot of resources and intelligent work into undermining this, or containing this at least. It's obvious that this would start in Hong Kong. They have a little, and they are the more capitalist of the two, for sure. Capitalism in many ways goes hand in hand this type of revolution. I also think it's very, if you sort of look and compare this movement with the way that human beings would handle this type of situation a few hundred years ago, I think we've learned some lessons. It's now not about people going to the streets with their bayonets and trying to which ultimately just means that a new type of dictator takes over and usurps the movement for his own purposes. People are using passive, non-violent ways to their disapproval of regimes, and I think that's a really positive step. At me, humanity is doing a good direction.
Excellent. Good to hear. Moving on to questions and answers. There's still a chance to get your questions in so you can hear our answers. There's about 24 of you watching right now. I can see you. We've got one question from Silver Miner. What's going on with Ripple? Seems to be plugging away at higher prices at the moment. Ripple, is, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is seen as a way for banks to transfer money. A very quick protocol, similar to Bitcoin, in some ways a copy of Bitcoin, but controlled by a single company. All of your Ripple stays in a single website, as far as my basic understanding of the Ripple. Why it's going up recently, there's been a lot of articles featuring it. People keep saying we're going to take Ripple and Bitcoin, and most of these people are banks. Christoph, do you have any further analysis on Ripple?
Show people the chart looks like it's quite a meteoric rise. Somewhere starting out 30 days ago below 0.000015 Bitcoin and almost tripling in the last 30 days, and particularly the last couple weeks have been pretty steep. There's definitely a lot of talk about potential pump and dumps or market manipulation by larger stakeholders. People are seeing large blocks of add up. People are wary and suspicious of this. It wouldn't be the first time that there was a significant rise in the Ripple price. It probably won't be the last time. But I would definitely caution people to be very, very skeptical trying to jump into what might look to the amateur like a bull market in XRP. I think we'll see much lower prices in the future. So just be careful where you buy in if you're going to get into that speculation game.
Ripple also famously had one of their co-founders walk away and take a large portion of Ripple, which I think he sold on the market. So maybe we're seeing an adjustment back from that sale, maybe just a return to the mean, although that looked like an incredibly steep chart. And again, as always, I wouldn't buy at the top of that chart. You want to buy low and sell high, not buy high and then hope it goes higher. So we've got Alex who writes, what's the best Bitcoin Black Friday deal? Now, I haven't gotten a chance to try any of these yet, but I was looking at them earlier on the site, so I'm going to go ahead and bring the site up, and we'll just go through a couple of them. And maybe you guys could even chime in at home, tell us what you're excited about, which one you're going to buy, or if you've already bought something, just let us know, and we'll talk about that company, and hopefully your item will arrive. But right here we've got some silver sales. We've got 25% off Reddit Gold. That sounds pretty good. Newegg's got some exclusive deals at $2.99 Xbox One. It's not bad. You can get a VPN, 5% back on gift. Purse has got 20% off. Maggie Metals has got some free shipping. We've also got, let's see, Namecheap, 20% bonus on Bitcoin on domain names. That sounded pretty good to me. We've also seen the Bitcoin shops got 15% off. Bees Brothers, 20% off. This is a really neat business. These are just some kids in Utah that sell you honey. So pretty cool if you want to try out the Bees Brothers. Help some young entrepreneurs. Silver Miner writes, oil, that's the best deal. He's right. Oil is a very good deal. We were just reading an article before the show. Oh, and he's also asking Christoph. So we'll expand into this oil issue in just a second because oil fell to $70 a barrel on news that OPEC was going to continue production despite prices dropping. So there's no attempt to control the oil market. And also, while we're talking about places to buy things on Bitcoin Black Friday, I want to plug the sponsor of Mad Bitcoins, Roberts & Roberts Brokerage at rrbi.co, where they have a coupon code BITCOIN. You can get free shipping. So if you want to try out some silver, some gold, free shipping, and you don't have to make a minimum $100 order if you pay in Bitcoin at rrbi.co. So shameless plug. But Christoph, what do you think about the oil situation? Silver Miner asks.
Yeah, I haven't been following OPEC in particular very closely, but I did see a related item in the news recently, which was Google investment of alternative energy technologies and basically saying they are failure, more efficient energy technologies that don't use fossil fuels and so forth. And mentioned a major internal study of different alternative technologies, how they're trending, and basically they're looking too good right now. wind, solar, etc., looking crappy right now. Is a bunch of fuels in order to generate to the point where they can make up that cost in a relatively short period of time. We're not that close to that, especially in these more green technologies. Might be a slightly different case for nuclear and so forth. Line is that some very smart people have looked at this issue, and I think that we're going to be using oil for a very, very long time.
Also recently in news, the Rockefellers divested all of their oil holdings. So it's very fascinating to keep an eye on what's going on with old money and old oil money. We've also got a question from Alex Sturck. Alex writes, speculations on Bryce Weiner's mystery patent. Well, this is the first I'm hearing of it. Previously, Bryce Weiner, guest on this show, loved having him, and he was working for Block Tech Group, and I heard that he was the CEO, and then I heard that something happened and he's no longer the CEO. I haven't really heard any more information about that from Bryce. As for a mystery patent, I have no idea. I know they were working on Alexandria, which was like a Twitter monitoring system, putting Twitter onto the blockchain. Sounded interesting. They had some other ideas about altcoin markets. And anyone else want to speculate on Bryce Weiner's mystery patent? Christoph, and Will will give you a chance after this.
Blockchain.
Bryce Weiner has patented the blockchain. That's going to be some serious problems. Will, care to challenge Bryce's patent?
No, I won't challenge it. He's a bright guy. He's full of interesting ideas, and he's a good researcher. So I'm not sure why I'm sure we'll all find out eventually. It'll be interesting.
If he thinks he can patent the whole blockchain, I'll bet it'll be great for all of us. I don't know. But anyway, let's see. Any more questions or answers? Anyone out there? Comments? What would you buy at Bitcoin Black Friday? The time is starting to run out on the show as we prepare for predictions or story of the week, where even I haven't prepared a prediction or a story of the week. Will Penguin, let's see, we've got one more question. It's something for, Alex has a guess on Bryce Weiner's patent. He says it's something for asset-backed cryptos. So let's keep an eye out on the asset-backed crypto sphere for a Bryce Weiner patent, and perhaps some patent lawsuits and issues after that, which is what happens always after you get a patent. So you start to defend it. Great for you. And we'll see how all that goes. And that, of course, would involve Counterparty and Ethereum and maybe even MadeSafe. So fun, 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 what you've got down on paper. Will, story of the week or prediction?
This is a story I read last Friday, so it's kind of still in the week. But it was an article on Boing and by Cory Doctorow, and he basically just talks about the new innovations coming out of giant tech companies like WhatsApp and Apple and others are being more friendly to security and privacy, more enabling of them to leverage end-to-end encryption or just strong cryptography, strong encryption of their data. And so this is having lots of backlash. You've probably heard of this, the fight between the FBI and Apple about iCloud. Apple claims it's technically zero knowledge, where Apple can't read the data. I'm not sure it's truly zero knowledge if it's truly end-to-end encrypted, but that's good news. I mean, this is a trend that I never thought we would see 2-3 years ago, and even a year ago was really pessimistic about this trend emerging for companies who have to lead the way for mass adoption of computing innovations. Really, they kind of have to lead the way because they have, like Apple controls 1 billion credit card numbers or something like that. So they really have users, into their culture. So them introducing, they're going to have to teach their users how to use these strong encryption tools, and that's going to be something they have the resources to do very well. So I'm just, positive on, there's lots of reasons that Google, Apple, Microsoft and others deserve derision and frustration from their users with regard to the privacy stuff. But this is definitely a great trend going in the right direction. I'd love to have a hand in fomenting a kind of virality for new applications emerging, whether they're blockchain-based or otherwise, embracing full end-to-end encryption, embracing just very security practices, and doing so without leaving behind the average or the novice computer user, but actually bringing them along too with very creative and well done UX UIs and just breaking the whole mold. And you gotta sacrifice security for convenience or vice versa. We won't have to do that in the near future, I'm hoping, because of trends like this.
It would be incredible to see the idea of privacy return to the internet, and I think encryption is the only way that we can do it. Christoph Atlas.
Yeah, one story of the week and one prediction. So I watched this presentation, a Korean woman named Yeonmi Park, and she gave a speech at the 2014 Oslo Freedom Forum. And you can do a search for North Korea's. So this is a North Korea went up through China, and a lot of the people who get to China, they get, as soon as they get caught by the Chinese, they'll get sent back to North Korea because there's this warped relationship between the Chinese and North Korea. So they managed to escape from China over to Mongolia and then to other parts of the world and eventually to South Korea. Talking about her experience of being in the regime and the degree of propaganda. She talked about how her breakthrough moment was when she first saw the movie Titanic. It was the first movie she saw where there was a love story wherein the two people not sacrificing themselves for the North Korean regime. And she realized when she saw this movie, like, holy crap, I have been hugely propagandized my entire life. And that really got the ball rolling for her and got her to start thinking outside the box and a desire to escape from her situation. And what she's basically saying is, look, the Western access or Western influence in North Korea is spreading amongst the young people, and it is creating this black of young people who all of a sudden are able to jump outside of the sandbox of propaganda in North Korea, that are able to do this black market activity. And as she so poignantly says in her presentation, once you start trading for yourself, which has always been verboten by the North Korean authorities, but things have been so economic police and so forth can be bought out easily to allow you to do your black market activity. Once you start trading for yourself, you start thinking for yourself. And that's an extremely exciting thought, not just in North Korea, but all over the world where people are hugely oppressed. I think that technologies like cryptocurrencies, like decentralized marketplaces, are going to play a tremendous role in that story that's continuing to. I'm really excited by that. I would highly recommend her presentation. And my prediction for the week, Satoshi Nakamoto will come out in the public. He will announce by the during the presentation.
I'm going to have to watch that back to see if the audio worked on the outside, because I sure couldn't hear it. But great predictions, Christoph. I like the first story. My prediction or story of the week is, if you liked Bitcoin Black Friday, wait till you see Bitcoin Giving Tuesday. This coming Tuesday, join at Mad Bitcoins and others on Twitter, where we will be giving to Bitcoin charities all day long. Just like last week where we did Tipping Tuesday for the Bitcoin media. Next week we're doing Tipping Tuesday for Bitcoin charities. That means BitGive Foundation. Also the brand new Mobile Medic who now accepts Bitcoin. And maybe even a few bucks for the American Red Cross. Check it out at Bitcoin Giving Tuesday. We've got time for just a couple of more questions because you're still sending them in. Silver Miner writes, what's up with the new Facebook rules? Looks suspect. I'm not sure. I've seen some kind of a privacy academy that I need to attend, and that soon they're going to be telling me new things and explaining things to me in new ways. They'll make me understand everything better. I have no idea. My posts are still set to friends only. I'm trying to keep that information in its box, although I do know that its box is owned by a company that could be owned by anyone else at any time. So it's a box with a lot of holes. I've also got a question from Michael Troder, who says, did you know that Andreas Antonopoulos is in New Zealand at the moment? New Zealand is on the Bitcoin map. I did hear that, and I heard that Tatiana Moroz is with him. And I've seen several posts on Reddit with live video of Andreas presenting at various Bitcoin meetups, and of course at the conference that he's attending, the Bitcoin South Conference. So congratulations to Andreas. It's great to have him representing the Bitcoin movement out there, and great to have Tatiana with him as well. Will, Christoph, any comments on these last couple of questions? Otherwise, let's see. Will, any last words?
I'm glad to see Bitcoin. It seems fun.
Christoph, any comments or last words about Bitcoin South? You know they have hobbits and Lord of the Rings stuff down there in New Zealand. Sounds pretty cool. Nothing but technical problems this episode for me, at least from where I'm sitting. I cannot hear if he's saying anything or what he's saying. But we're out of time. Oh, no? Christoph? No? Oh, I'm sure after we turn off the broadcast, everything will start to work again, as is the way with Google these days. So, but we're out of time. Until next time, bye-bye.